knew when 9/11 took place. That right there is a shocking and iconic image in American history. Everybody remembers exactly where they were when 9/11 happened, right? Actually, according to a study by Phelps-Hurst of the Psychological Association in 2015, up to 40% of people actually misremember where they were when 9/11 took place. How is this possible? Most people have a critical misunderstanding of how memory works and how it takes place. As a student who's pursuing a degree in history and somebody that plans to go to law school after that, I understand how critical memory is and how detailed study needs to be on that subject. Memory is a moldable and changeable aspect of our brain. It isn't as reliable as one might believe, and its accuracy and inaccuracy impact historical events and eyewitness accounts every single day. Let me swing back to what I mentioned at the beginning of this, and let's take a look how memory handles and archives significant historical events. Memory has a tendency to merge with other memories. In the same study from Hearst that we mentioned before, one man, when they interviewed him, said that he was on the street whenever he heard news of 9/11. However, when they interviewed him a few years before that, he said that he was in his office. Why is that? Most people would say maybe he was lying, but the truth is he probably was telling the truth. Hearst explains that this is a phenomenon known as a time splice error. Both of those memories occurred, they just occurred at different times, and somewhere along the line, those two memories became merged in that man's mind. The brain constantly seeks in chaotic situations to create cohesive narratives, even when a cohesive narrative doesn't exist, and sometimes accuracy suffers as a result. Memory also has a tendency to fade and evolve over time. Memory is not like a book. According to Ed Young from National Geographic in 2013, he said that memory is more like opening a document on a computer. Every time you open a Word document on a computer, you can edit it, you can change it, and then you can save it for the next time you open it back up again. In reality, memory is not written in stone. Every single time you access a memory, it gets altered a tiny bit, it gets tweaked a little bit, and over the years, the memory from the original time it happened may be very different whenever you remember it the next time. But we can actually take this one step further. It's actually possible to entirely fabricate a memory that has no basis in reality at all. Memory can be fabricated by mere suggestion. In a famous study in the University of Washington by E.F. Lotus in 1997, she gathered a large group of subjects for her test, and she all told them a false story from their childhood. She told them that this story was corroborated by a close relative of theirs, but the story never actually happened. But 29% of the people she told the story to thought that it was true. The story was about themselves, yet they believed that this was their own memory. And when she interviewed them years down the road, 25% of the people still believed that that memory was their own memory. She used the same technique to implant false memories of people when they're infants. The thing about that is, though, is that nobody has memories from when they're infants. The hippocampus, the region of the brain that documents and creates memories, isn't developed when we're an infant. It's an impossibility to have those memories. However, even whenever she put them under hypnosis, 46% of the people recalled memories from when they were an infant. Their mind had entirely fabricated those memories out of nothing. It's not always as trivial as misremembering childhood stories, however. And a study by M.B. Rusano of the Psychological Science in 2005 found that in one of the tests he conducted, 69% of people will confess to a crime they didn't commit if they're presented with false evidence to corroborate that. And these aren't just panicking in the moment either. Years later, even when they had nothing to lose by telling the truth, whenever they showed them this evidence again, they stuck to their stories and they truly believed they had committed a crime that they didn't actually commit after the fact. The mind is always seeking to craft memories, and it's seeking narratives to explain things that it has trouble explaining. With that being said, you can see how memory has the serious potential to impact history and eyewitness testimony. Let me go back to the very beginning of what we talked about. We mentioned 9/11 and the study that was conducted that showed that 40% of people actually got that wrong. Now, 9/11 had massive video documentation, thousands of eyewitnesses, no shortage of news reporting on it. Most historians say that it's the most well-documented event in all of human history. Imagine if there was no technology to document it. imagine if there was fewer witnesses. Maybe there was only a handful of witnesses. Now, think about something like the assassination of Julius Caesar. Less than 100 people were witness to that event, and only about 2 of them wrote anything down about it, and that was years after the fact. How can we possibly trust the details of that event? It's impossible to know exactly what happened. If something as well documented as 9/11 can be muddied and muddled, how accurate could this account actually be? Before camera and film, history was entirely reliant on eyewitness testimony. Archaeology has a tendency to contradict historical narratives. Now, as we've seen, memory is a far more complicated topic than meets the eye. Memory is constantly evolving, and it's a manipulated aspect of the mind. It's a deeply complex subject that's still being unraveled and has more psychological layers than a simple imprint of an event that happened in the past. Memory, like life, is not rigid, but it's a constantly flowing and changing mental experience. Thank you.